Hello and welcome again for the third installment of our three-part series on emergency planning for your business. Again, I'm here with Katie Mangelli of Monarch CPA, and she's going to talk to us about the financial aspect of your emergency plan so that you're prepared for any kind of emergency outage, what have you. So, Katie.
Hey.
How are you?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So what is the very first thing that we should be thinking about as business owners when thinking about your finances while you're out for any length of time? It could be a vacation or a family emergency, etc.
So I think we need to think about what is our financial picture inside of our business. What bills have to get paid, what money is coming in, and kind of what channels do they flow through, and figure out what is going on so that then we can create a plan, which is what we've done in our first two steps. So we want to look at, let's start with expenses. You know, what bills need to get paid every single month? And perhaps you're thinking, oh, I got nailed it. It's on auto debit. Well, that's great as long as the revenue keeps flowing in. But depending on how long you're going to be out, what are those items on auto debit? What are your monthly expenses and overhead for your business run? And in the last two steps, we've also talked about what type of business are you? Do you have a team? Is that independent contractors or is that employees? Because they may be paid differently than your other types of bills, like your Zoom subscription, which auto debits, or your cell phone, which may be on auto debit. If you have independent contractors, they may be sending invoices. It may be per project. It may be based on hours worked. And so it may be more variable. And if you were out, who would have the ability to review their invoice and to approve their payment so that they get paid on time and can continue covering those projects for you while you're out? And if you have a team of employees that are on W-2 payroll, there's many more steps to that. So who's submitting the hours or the salary, who's approving it, who's making sure those payroll taxes at the federal and state level are getting paid, depending how long you're going to be out, who's making sure those payroll tax returns are paid and filed and that everything is in tip-top shape so that you don't end up with any service cancellations or interruptions or staff not being paid or tax bills that are behind. So in this part of the plan, it would be really getting clear on what are my monthly expenses, which are on auto debit, which require some kind of approval, which ones do I have to pay by bill pay or an ACH or another system, and kind of break them up by category and an estimated amount so that you could start to plan for how that would be managed.
That's amazing, and a lot to think about in just that one question in and of itself. There's one thing that I was wondering, so last week and the week before, we talked about making sure that you have someone on your accounts that can access passwords. And you mentioned it here in this last question too. For finances, like if I want to give somebody, for like anything else besides finances, if I want to give someone access to my LastPass or Google Drive, I can just give that to someone that I trust. For a business, and when it comes to finances, do you need something like power of attorney for that, or is it still someone that's a trusted person?
So that depends. I mean, for example, I can give somebody my information. If, for example, you forgot that your bank does a two-factor authentication and they don't have your cell phone, they're not going to be able to call the 1-800 number and get support and get into your account. So you really need to think about what the right setup is. It could be some type of power of attorney, which again, a lawyer would have to advise on that part. It could also be for banking. You can add a signer to your account, but you need to understand you are giving them privilege and access to your finances. You are giving away the authority, like you can't dictate what they can or can't do. If you add someone as a signer, they're almost an equal partner in your finances. So it just really needs to be somebody that you trust, that you have some kind of contract or agreement or discussion, and expectations are clearly outlined in your life, and you're clear on how that's going to be handled.
Got it. And then for like you said, a lot of the expenses can be set on autopilot, but a lot of times, especially if you're an hourly structure, you're invoicing by the hour, and that invoice is probably more manual. Any advice on how to manage that?
And this is actually one of the great things where the financial section actually has so many more options for how you can manage those in your absence. Meaning, for example, we handle accounts payable and accounts receivable for some of our clients just on an ongoing basis as part of their business model, which means we have access to either bank information or third-party applications that allow us to send ACH, wire payments, or process payroll for our clients. So it could be that we could be that backup system and have things in place to kind of take over handling those. Similarly with how do you do invoicing if it's hourly? Well, hopefully you have some systems in place that keep track of that time. I know that back in the day, I was guilty of using my planner or a sticky note. When I first started out and we had to bill our time in such tiny increments that you're switching back and forth, I would just kept a pad on my desk and wrote it down. Not helpful. And then I would have to go in at the end of the day and put it all in the system and find all the job codes. But now that was before apps and cell phones and all these wonderful tools. So hopefully now in your business, you have apps both on your phone or on your computer that allow you and your team to track your time. And if so, you can give somebody like our team access as an administrator to that app, where then we can export reports and bill based on the terms of your contract at what rate. And we would have the ability to interface with your accounting system, such as QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online, so that your invoice is branded and can just be emailed as a PDF from the software directly to your customer.
Yeah, and it's completely unknown. That is not from you, the founder. It probably shouldn't be anyways at a certain point. But to add to that really quickly, there's a couple of fun, I love tools and, and apps and all of those things. One thing that I started using just for my, I don't bill hourly, but just for my own knowledge, I started using Toggl, Toggl. And it will automatically track what you're doing. And it will remind you hey, you haven't told me what you're doing. Maybe you should do that.
I've heard a few of those, and we very rarely bill hourly. We have a few projects that we do, but most of the time we don't. But for those, we still track our time, because it's important as a business owner, even if you're not billing hourly, to go, wait, why did I feel like this project maybe didn't feel as great as I was expecting? Or, and it's great to kind of have that track of time and be like, okay, well, what actually worked out? Was this a good plan? And to learn from that when you're, making proposals on other projects, and to really know how long things take you. It also helps you with staffing. Totally on a different topic here. So we'll end the tangent there, but it's still great.
Awesome. And then, I was going to say one more tool, but I don't want to take us back to another tangent. Sometimes project management tools also will keep track of your time for you if that is something that you need to do, just something to help you automate things.
Yeah, and I agree. So just leverage the tools, which is important at every stage of this emergency planning process, is to figure out what tools can help me, what tools can help with communication and project and workflow and billing and invoicing and time tracking. This is a great time to find both systems, processes, and tools that all interface together.
Exactly. And the fewer things that you have to use, the fewer things to keep track of, and the more simple it can be for someone else to come in and help you with all of these different areas. So I love that you mentioned that that's something that Monarch can help with, that you're in the books anyways, you're already familiar with the business, and it really just kind of makes sense to have you step in and help with that aspect, the financial aspect of it. What are some tips that you have for someone to get started in approaching either their existing CPA or Monarch CPA?
I think, yeah, it's just understanding, if you are working on your emergency planning. So one thing we haven't talked about is part of, if you have those expenses on auto debit or you have a way for them to be approved and processed, where will the money be? So, for example, if a third party like us as your CPA is preparing and sending out those invoices, great. Do they have a payment link embedded? Do they have to mail you a check? Do you have to
Where's
go
the
to
check going?
merchant service processor and enter information in it? What does that system look like? And then again, who is managing that? Because it's great to get the invoice out, but the cash also needs to be in the bank account so that when these bills go out, they're covered. So that's just an important component to look at the expenses, to look at the income, and how are we going to make sure that that cash flow is flowing when you aren't there to kind of supervise and manage that. And so, the conversation that you can come to us with is, as you're working through steps 1 and 2 and 3, is figuring out, what would this look like for my clients? What does this look like for my team? And then with my finances, and then figuring out how we can support you. We can support you in terms of helping you make sure that those bill payments are going out, that we have systems and access to your information to support you in that way. And also with your invoicing and or managing those merchant service payments, we can make sure that we have access again and systems to take that on and to step into those shoes for you, so that part of the plan could include us. It could also be that if you're a solopreneur without a team or without a partner in life, that we are the holders of that plan. Perhaps you designate someone in your family that we're the person that you contact to help manage part of that and communicate and unroll what has been developed. So as you work through each one of these steps, it could be that it's time to reach out, have a conversation with us about what your considerations are, what you're looking at, what your plan, how it's unfolding and developing, and where we may be of support to you in this planning process and in the case of emergency.
That's excellent. And then when is a good time? I feel like the earlier the better. But is there too early to start thinking about emergency planning?
I think that when you have a customer, it is time to think about what your emergency plan is. So in addition, we're talking about, will those expenses get paid? Will that income come in? But as we talked about in steps 1 and 2, what are your other obligations? So if you had a new client that signed up and paid their initial invoice, but the deliverables are going to take a period of time, maybe you've done 1 week of a 6-month project and you've collected a piece of that work. Is your team able to carry that on? This is a discussion we had in a previous module. But if they can't, and you need to let this client know that, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to support you, someone also needs to be able to manage that refund and figure out how to return the money to that project if you're not going to be able to support it. So I think as soon as you have a client and as soon as you're taking on that responsibility, that you need to either be able to follow through or have the conversation about delaying it or being able to delegate that work. And so, yeah, as soon as you have that responsibility to a team or to a client, it's important to have a backup plan in place.
It's part of your responsibility as a service provider. So,
yeah,
or product provider. Thank you, Katie, so much for giving us all the information. You've given us so much to think about over the course of these 3 weeks and these 3 aspects of financial planning. If anyone has questions that haven't been addressed, please feel free to put a comment below this video or the ones that are in previous weeks, and we'll have information in the post on how you can reach out directly to Katie if you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason posting under the video. So thank you very much. It was such a joy to learn about these things, and I hope everyone gets their financial planning done with you because it is really very, very, very important.
Thank you. And again, these are some overwhelming topics. We have jam-packed a lot of information into as concise of videos as we can so as not to overwhelm you. So there could be some details that went unanswered. There could be some scenarios that are really specific to your business that aren't maybe feeling universal. This doesn't relate to me, or what about this scenario? So that's a great time to just message, reach out and contact me. Say, hey, I want to ask you this question, and I'll be sure to connect with you.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you everyone for watching.
Okay, bye.
Bye.